Hello and welcome to this SAP Community Call. My name is Minina Chao and I am part of the SAP Community team, your host for today's call. Today we have Michael Feeth with us, and the session is about news and expert insights about consolidation in SAP Master Data Governance. Before I hand over to Michael, just a few housekeeping notes. So for those of you who are new to Zoom, there are options for you to ask questions in Q&A. So you see a bottom functionality with a menu where you can see Q&A, and this is where you can feel free to ask questions related to the call, to the presentation anytime, and we will be happy to answer them and have some time spared at the end of the call for your questions to be answered. And then we also have the chat functionality. Please only use this to add comments or feedback, but yeah, really want to remind you to use Q&A. Additionally, at the end of this call, we will have a little poll and also time for you to raise questions by voice. So you can even unmute yourself, but I will get to that at the end of the call. So for now, I will just hand over to you, Michael, to get started. Enjoy.
Okay, so welcome everybody to this webinar about consolidation in Master Data Governance. So for today, we have on the agenda, first of all, I will want to give you an introduction about this topic of consolidation. And in the next part, we will talk about all news in consolidation on S4HANA 1909. And I will also try to show you some of these new features in a demo. But first of all, I wanted to start with a video for this topic. So please enjoy about Master Data Governance.
In today's digital world, the amount and the complexity of data are growing constantly, and so is the challenge in providing high-quality data, which can only be done with highly efficient tools. So here we'd like to show you how SAP Master Data Governance helps you consolidate and centrally govern your master data, and how you can use it to increase data quality, to guarantee consistency, and to make the digital transformation of your business a success.
Okay, so let's start about the introduction of this topic. You have seen the video, and now you know which disciplines we currently support in our MDG solution. So perhaps, as you know, as of several years, we already have the central governance part of Master Data Governance, where you are enabled to maintain, create master data in line with business processes, based on a workflow-driven approach, where you can really start to bring your data under central governance, and you create only data under this central system. And beside that, we offer, meanwhile, also a functionality which is called data quality management, which helps you to manage your data quality using special quality rules, which helps you to give an insight in your data to allows you to find quality issues and also to correct them. And the third topic, it's about consolidation. That's what I want to present you today. It's about bring a single view into your data, which is not under central governance, but from a third-party system or data which is not under the control of your central governance. This is relevant if you have mergers and acquisitions by bringing the data into your central system, or if you have the requirement to continuously load data from external sources into your central master data system. Let's have a look on the process, how such a consolidation process looks like. So in general, we have these steps in such a process. you start with the data load. That means you have somewhere data from outside which you want to bring into your system. And this is possible using an import. To import the data, we have several options. One option will be that we provide an Fiori app to import the data into the system. But it's also possible to use any other ETL tool or even use our business partner SOAP service to bring the data from outside from another system into such a consolidation run. When you have done this, then you have a set of data which you first want to check if the data is really consistent. We talk about an initial check. This initial check is working in a way that it will be checked against your customizing in your MDG system, like mandatory fields or all values which are allowed or not allowed, or some other fields. And in addition, if this is not sufficient for you, you can even now validate also against your central governance checks, because it could be that you already run a central governance system and you have defined some bodies and BF plus rules, which should be also checked. And this can be also applied in this initial check. After this initial check, you can have a look on the data, and we offer an option to make a standardization. Standardization means you can somehow bring the data in shape based on specific rules. A prominent example for that is the address validation. And therefore, we offer the options to you the S4HANA Smart Data Quality address validation. This helps you to check if you have business partner data, to check if the address data is really valid. So you can check against external postal repositories, and this check allows you also to define if a zip code is correct or the street is really existing and so on. If this is not sufficient, you can also use BF Plus with your own standardization rules to bring the data in shape. After standardization, we try to make a matching step. So that means you load data into the system and you want to find out if you have duplicates in your existing data. And in addition, we also check for duplicates inside the loaded data, so not only against your existing ones. For the matching step, we have also some options. The most recommended options is to use the S4HANA fuzzy matching capabilities, where you can really define matching rules based on fields and rules, how you can find matches inside your data. If the matching has been taking place, then you can make a match review. So match review means that in some cases the matches have a score upper a specific threshold, and then it's clear that it's a match. For example, it's a score more than 98%, but you could have also some potential matches which are not clear that it's really a match. Then we talk about open match groups, and you can make a review based on this data and check all the match groups, and you can approve or reject these matches. Coming to the next step, we talk about calculate best record, or golden record in some words. And based on the match result, the system will try to bring the data together, so to merge the data. So for example, if in your existing data you have a lot of information but not a phone number, and you load a similar record where the phone number is in, but the system detects it's a matches, then we try just to add the phone number to your existing data. This is how this best record calculation works. And in addition, there's also a review functionality in the best record calculation, because sometimes the best record calculation does not fit 100% to your needs, or it creates adds too much data to your system, and then you can still react on that and adapt the result. After that, we talk about a validation step. It's similar to the initial check, but now hopefully you have cleansed your data and the validation runs again. And we check again against your customizing in the system and all other rules. And then the system will identify if there are still errors and warnings. And based on the result, you can go into the activation step. into the activation step, and there after that the data is really available in the system and all other users can find the new consolidated data. So that's the typical process for consolidation of source records. You load the data into the system. Beside that, we have also another process in consolidation. It's called consolidation of active record. It's not running or loading data from outside, but it's checking of duplicates of existing data in your system. It's like a data quality discipline. Yeah? So it's similar to the source records load, but the first step is not a load, it's a selection. So that's the difference. The rest is really similar. So you select a specific amount of data, for example, all business partners for the country UK, and then the system tries to find the duplicates inside this selected records, and then you have similar steps like matching, best record calculation, validation, and activation. I don't want to go in details for this topic for today because we will now focus on the consolidation of source records. Okay, let's have a look. What's new in consolidation on S4HANA 1909? Because today I want to focus more on the news on this topic. So what's really useful for you if you go for S4HANA 1909? I think one of the most best new feature is our summary of changes. So if you run a consolidation process, you did all steps after the activation, everything has been activated. But the problem was that if you have a look on the process, you were not informed which records you really have created and which records have been updated. And it was possible to use a separate app to make this tracking of this process, but I think it's more useful for the user to see immediately what really he did now in this process, and also for other users after this process to check what processes have done what with your data. That means in the last step of activation, you will see now later in the demo, you see a category of updates and new best records, and then you can even navigate into this information and see really the IDs which have been created, and you see also the updates and even the changed fields are visible for you what you have done with your consolidation process. In the case of that you want to activate the data not directly but into an MDG change request from governance, that's also possible with consolidation. You even can have the information into which change request you have load the data in, and then you can check the status of this change request. So it's a very important new feature as of 1909. Next feature, which is interesting for you, the enhanced address validation. So before I mentioned that in the standardization step, you were able to use an HANA Smart Data Quality functionality to analyze your address data. So you can imagine that this is a mass process. You can even load 100,000 or millions of data into the system, and it's very difficult for us if the address validation to say it can cleanse the data or it cannot cleanse the data. That's very easy, but in some cases the address validation offers you the possibility to work with ambiguous address data. Like the street is not 100% clear. There is a similar street in the same city, and then the smart data quality functionality could ask you to select one of the addresses. Yeah? And now we implemented this functionality also here in the mass process. At the end of the standardization step, we will have still a big list of records which could be cleansed automatically, but there's also a small part which have to be done using a review functionality where you will be lead through such a wizard where the system asks you, for example, please decide between this street, and then I can cleanse the data. Okay, that's about enhanced address validation. Another topic is handling of cross-references. So assuming you load data into the system, and this is a very good example for business partner. In business partner, you have also this partner functions. And in this partner functions, sometimes you reference to another business partner or customer and supplier. And the problem is if you load everything in one load with all these customers which reference to the other one, then the system has a problem, because if you want to activate such a data, then the system will check, this data you want to reference on is not there yet. So and the system will raise an error for you. But now we found a functionality which helps you to resolve these references and even loops of these references when you load the data into the system. So here are some examples. So like you have BP business partner 15, 16, 17, and 18, and 15 points to 16, 16 points to 17, and 17 points to 18. And if you load everything and they are activated in a specific sequence, everything is fine. But the problem is if you start to activate 15 and 16 is not yet there, you get an error. And now with this functionality, we just try by intelligent sequencing to find out the right sequence to get all the data activated in one sequence, in one step in the system. And even the loops are possible. You see the second example where you have such a sequence of data, but the last one again points to the first one. And then you are really have lost, because how we can do that. And now we also found a solution for that in our consolidation process, to load all this type of references in one consolidation process. And at the end, we will try it with sequencing and multiple activations to get everything activated into the system. That's a very important feature in this case. Further improvements. So we found out that in some cases, when you upload and export files and you use the Office Open XML format, which is used by Excel, especially for the import, then you have a high load of memory in your system, because it's an XML type file. And if you want to load it up and it will be extracted on your application servers, this need really a lot of memory. And if you do it for a lot of data, like millions of records using Excel sheets, then you are most probably forced to split it up in several uploads, which is possible for sure. But some customers complained about this. And now we decided to support also compressed CSV files. So, you know, CSV files are already supported by our solutions. They are really lean files, have some disadvantages, but also some advantages. And we also support now compressed files. So you can make several CSV files, and then you zip these files in one file, and then you load it up. And we identified that the load for such compressed CSV file is much less than if you're using such an Excel file. That's the reason why we introduced this new file format to upload the file in your system. Then we support also a mask creation scenario without key mapping. So if you have already used the consolidation and you want to use it for a migration use case, for example, then you just want to load the data. You're not interested that the system will create key mapping at the end of the process, because this is the standard behavior we are doing, which is important for continuously loading data, but for migration, it's not necessary. So from now on, from 1909, we allow to load data without creating of key mapping. And this is also important for a scenario where you want to load business partner relationships afterwards if you have already activated data. And this is now available as of 1909. And for the data model, we also make some extensions, like we have some parts of the credit management data, at least the credit master data part. So the central credit management information can be also now handled in consolidation. And for BP, also unloading points and the long texts for sales and purchasing text. And for the product domain, we now support also production resources and tools. So the PRT functionality is now supported also in this release. Okay, so I think it's enough with slides. We go directly into the demo. So let's start my demo. And you will see some of these features immediately when I go through my recorded demo. So first of all, the use case is I have a file with some data and I want to bring it into the system and check for matches and duplicates and want to merge the data. And at the end, I want to see the result, what I have done. So the first step, I want to use the Fiori import app. So import data for consolidation of business partners in my example. So I start this application and I have to select my source file, which is currently used, as you see, as Excel file. And then the app will make a first check, upload it, and you get an information if the data is consistent. This is only a very small consistency check. That means it's just checked if the in a number field is a number and not a text, and so on and so forth. And a source system, I want to define a special source system. It's a load. I just input a date. The source system has the advantage that the key mapping will be written. So that means if I load from the same source system the data again, it's easier for the system to recognize the data which has been already loaded, and then the data will be handled as update. Then you click here on the import button on the bottom, and then the data will be put into our staging tables. We talk about source tables. And if everything is fine in this log, then you click here on the Consolidate button, where you are able to input a description. In my case, I say load business partners 2020-03, and I can select a template. Template is important. You can define your own templates. Template means it's the sequence of the steps you want to apply for such a process. And in my case, I select consolidate business partner data with address validation. That means in this template, I want to use this HANA Smart Data Quality address validation. I save it, and then you see a process overview based on the template you have selected. We have an initial check, a standardization, a matching, best record calculation, validation, and activation. And all this step have a specific configuration. So this configuration has been also taken from the template. So you can make some pre-configurations and then use this, applying this template. But it's still possible for specific users to change some of these configurations during the run of the process. It's still possible with specific authorizations, right? So let's start with the initial check. You click here on the Start button, and then the initial check will be executed, and you see I have some errors. So you can click on this error, and then the system will provide you the information like region 08 is not defined for country, or enter postal code. So you have some errors which have been configured in the system, and you are able to navigate into the records which are affected by these errors. Like this, you see here, the postal code is missing. That's the reason why the message came up. And you can go back, and now you can decide what to do. You have several options. One option could be to correct the data directly here in the initial check. So that's possible. You can even modify the data in a UI. But in my case, I said, okay, it's postal codes and country and region. That's something which could be fixed by the standardization, by the HANA Smart Data Quality functionality. That's the reason why I just click on continue to start the standardization step. Standardization step has been finished, and now you see the result. You have different colors. So this orange, yellow one, like 2, it has is modified rows. So these are address data which could be cleansed by the address validation immediately. But we have also some defective rows, that's the red one, and ambiguous rows. And before we had this new functionality, we had only defective rows and modified rows. And now we have also the possibility to make a review on this blue and the red ones. Yeah. So let's have a look. First of all, we want to go for the modified rows to see what has been happened with the data. So you click on this orange one, show details, and then the system provides you what the cleansing functionality has been done. And by clicking on the changes, you get an overview for which record, which data has been cleansed by the HANA address validation. So in this case, you see the city name has been applied and the postal code, and even the region code has been automatically detected. Okay, So let's go back. That's easy. That we already had before. But now we would like to have a look on the ambiguous rows. So where you have to react on something like a manual address validation. So you click here on the details, and then now you see the record. And in this case, you see here we have a street name, but no house number, no region, and the system cannot automatically cleanse this data. And then you get here this button validate. You click on it, and then the system provides you a wizard. And you see here the mandatory field country is already filled, and also the city and the street. And then you click on continue. And then the system provides you some suggested addresses, because there are, for Kaiser Street in Karlsruhe, we have two options. It's like Innenstadt Ost, Innenstadt West, but there's also a similar street, Kaiserslauterner Straße. So you can select one of these streets. I select the first one, and then you click on continue. And then the system also asks if you have an odd address or not. And you select the first one, which are the odds. And it also asks for a house number, because you didn't maintain the house number. In this case, I maintained the 13. And then you click on continue, and then you see an overview after this review that now the Karlsruhe has been detected with the right postal code. The street has been standardized, because you have some settings to standardize also street names, like make only an abbreviation of this long name of Straße in German will be abbreviated by STR, and the house number you have maintained manually. And now you can decide accept validated address or use original address. In my case, I say accept validated address. And now it disappears automatically from this work list, because it was the last one. And you can also do the same with the defective records, because here possibly you have also the functionality to correct the data. You select it. For the first one, it's very easy, I would say, because the country is missing. And if the country is missing, then the address validation cannot find out if the address is valid or not. That's one of the mandatory fields. You click on validate, and then the system immediately asks for the country. You input the country, click on continue, and then even then the system has some options and makes some suggestions for the streets. And you select the second one, and based on the result, you can accept or refuse the validated address. And for the other one, I can make it a little bit faster because it's similar. The country is missing. Click on continue, select the address. There's only one. And the house number was also missing, and you know it perhaps, and then you input and accept validated address. So this is one of the new features of 1909. So you have a wizard-like UI for review of ambiguous or erroneous addresses coming from the address validation. Okay, after finalizing the standardization, we go into the matching step. In the matching step, you see here, the system found one duplicate, and it's an open match group. You see here in category, that means a review is necessary, is required for that. And group type is with active record. So you load data and the system detects a match against your existing data. So you have to go into the match review. You click here on match review, and then you see here the match group with the data. And you can compare it. You see here, okay, the name of the company, it's really similar. The first one is somehow abbreviated, which is active, so it's already in the system. And the loaded data, software company, but it has a score of 96%. I think my threshold is 98, so that's the reason why I have to review it. If I would set up a threshold of 95, then this match would be automatically approved because it's upper your threshold. In my case, I just click on approve, and then the match group has been approved. And you see here, now I have only approved match groups. Let's continue to the next step. Now I have a match group, then I want to merge the data coming from the match group. This is done by the best record calculation. I click on the best record calculation, and the result is I have 4 new single records, because you remember I loaded 5 records. 4 of them have not found any duplicates, but 1 found a duplicate. And then we handle this as update of an existing record. So for the new records, I'm not interested to review the data. I'm interested how my existing data will be modified using the loaded data. So I click on the green part of my chart, and then I have the possibility to review the result of the best record calculation. I select this record and click on the review button. And then you can see here in the review on the first row, the best record, and on the bottom, you see the source records. The source records means I have one record. This is the system UKB, that's my existing system, and the source system from the load data. And the system try to merge the data. And this is, in this example, in my existing record, the search term 1 was not yet filled. And I have a rule which is called completeness, which tries to find some fields from the loaded data and make the completion in the existing best record. That's the reason why I see here the rule completeness. And you see here also an icon which shows you, okay, this field has been used to fill in here your best record. That's an example how you can review the data. So you can also check the address data. You see here the tabs, the address usage data and the phone data. Okay, we can go back. We are fine with the review, so it's just a review. We do not correct. You can correct data if you like, but I'm fine with the result of the best record calculation. Let's go into the validation step. Okay, you go into validation. You see here, I have some warnings. So everything seems to be fine. Warning, it's not critical, but I want to have a look on it. So I click here on the warning icon, and I get an information specify a valid country indicator. So I click on show result. And I know that this country indicator is part of the phone numbers. So, and you see here in the phone numbers, the country field is missing. So it's just a warning. The system will accept it, but it's better to make a complete phone number information. And now I have the possibility to correct this immediately in the UI. I select the records which I want to correct, and then I have here some buttons, replace values and clear values. In my case, I want to replace. And both records are from Germany. So I select the country code for Germany and I click on replace, and then you see here, country code has been replaced and marked as change. So if I go back, now we come also to a new feature. It's came with 1809, because now you have changed the validated data and somehow you invalidate the validation. And if you click now and continue, the system will say, okay, one or more records have been changed after the validation of this step. Do you want to validate the data again by adding an additional validation step? So you have now the option, if you change data in the validation, that the system just add the same validation again. So, and I just want to do it. And then you see here in the process, you see here validation and validation 2. That means the system just adds the same validation again, and you can see immediately the result of this validation step. In this case, everything is green now. So that means I fixed this error in the validation step. Okay, so I'm also fine with validation. And the last step, you remember, it's the activation. And you see here, everything is fine. And I want to present you also another functionality, the audit trail. So if someone wants to check again what happens, you click here on the audit trail, and then you find all the steps, all the manual interaction and automatic interaction in the system. And you even see the information about the edit of the data, which I did. You see here modified records. This happened during the address validation. So because it was a manual action, so I made it somehow the names here invisible because it's a recording and we have some data privacy and protection requirements. And so you can check each step and each action of this consolidation process, also afterwards, after the activation. So you can hide the audit trail, and now we come to one of the new features in 1909. It's a summary of changes. So now you see in the last step in the activation, which records you have how many records and which records you have really created, new single records for, and one update. And what you can do now, you can directly click here on this updates, click on show details, and then you see in this system the source ID with the number, software company. You can click on show changes, and the system will show you here a phone number has been inserted. So it is this type of insert, and you remember the search term has been changed from nothing, from empty to marketing one. So you can check all the changes triggered by this mass process. And it's also possible to navigate to this business partner. Therefore, we offer now the functionality to navigate directly to the new business partner Fiori app. And just by clicking on it, the system navigates to the business partner, which comes out from this consolidation process. And you can compare, check the data if it's really activated in the system. Okay, so that's about the demo. Let's go back to my slides. Oops, sorry. And that's the demo. And I would say we can start now with questions and answers.
Okay, therefore, thank you very much, Michael. Therefore, we have already questions in Q&A if you want to have a look at them and answer them live. Otherwise, now is the option for participants to raise their hand if they want to speak up. Otherwise, I would say let's get started with a question already asked in Q&A, okay?
Okay, so I just opened questions and answers from Q&A. There is one question: can we use third-party services for standardization? So that's possible. We have the possibility, we call it adapter concept. So in a customer project, you can create your own coding inside a standardization adapter, and it's a specific interface. We will provide soon also a how-to guide for that. There are some information in our config guide how to make a new adapter for standardization, but it's possible to use also third-party service for the standardization adapter. It's even possible for each of the steps you see here in the system. Is it possible to download the match results? So not in a very nice UI. We have a functionality, it's called MDC Inspector, because the data is stored in a table and you are able to run this MDC Inspector and input your process. Then you can even download this information, but it's not a very nice UI, to be honest. So it's also not out of the box, and very important, you can only download the match results if the process has not been finished, because if you finish it, we try to cleanse all the process data. So it's possible, but it's not, I would say, not very nice. Is there an official limitation of total amount of records for one process? There is no official limitation. What we are doing is we have a performance and sizing guide for this functionality. The limiting factor is in general only the matching step, because the matching step means that you have to bring all the data together, and there's a special sizing for your HANA's fuzzy matching, because you need just a specific amount of memory to do that. For all other steps, it's independent on the amount of data. We even have the functionality to make parallelization of the data. So you can run all the steps using parallelization and then improve the performance for that. For loading the data, I already mentioned it, you could have some limitations if you use Excel sheets, because that's also a question of the memory. Unfortunately, we have no number, because it depends on the sizing of your system and the number of fields in the file. So that means we cannot provide a real limitation, because we have none, but you will find out that at the end, it's a question of the memory. is the consolidation demo based in hub or co-deployed with S4 system? It doesn't matter. So it depends what you want to have, because the consolidation usually you do into the system, you want to consolidate your data. And if it's a co-deployment, it's a co-deployment. If it's an MDG deployment on a specific hub, then you will always consolidate the data into your hub. So it's possible for both use cases. So there is no different. Where can I find more details on the BP SOAP service? There are some details in our help portal, help.sap.com. We have even now, if you try to find, we have so-called section integration scenarios in our online help, where we describe in detail an integration scenario with C4C, Cloud for Customer. And therefore, we also use the SOAP service. And there's a very detailed configuration information regarding this BP SOAP service. So if you want to have more details or you need more details, you can search in our online help using this integration scenario, or please raise the question in our community. Then we can also give you some links or more details on that. Let's have a look. What is the difference of mass processing and mass maintenance? So it's not directly related to this functionality, but in general, I can give you an answer here. Mass maintenance is it's not part of the MDG license, so it's part of the S4 license. It's a similar application. The mass processing you will get if you buy an MDG license for a specific domain. And the main difference is that for mass maintenance, you have no configuration capabilities. You can not create any template. You cannot make any configuration inside a process. You cannot create into a change request. You cannot make some special checks against your MDGs, or you cannot use BF Plus to make updates. So everything is not possible. It's just a limited functionality of a mass update functionality. So if you want to have more flexibility, you have to use mass processing. If it's sufficient for you to make simple replacement of fields, then mass maintenance is the right solution. Okay. Question, is the validation in the consolidation shared with the validation in the governance process? Yes, that's correct. So meanwhile, we allow to make the same validation in the consolidation. To make the same validation, you have defined the governance with the consolidation. So this is what I have shown to you. There's the flag in the validation, which you can figure, and then you say apply also the checks from central governance. That's possible. For the future, we even go more beyond this. You know that we have now the new data quality functionality with data quality rules. And this will be the central rule repositories for validation for all our MDG applications. This is also valid from 1909. And I think I can say in 1 week, we have this data quality webinar also as community session, where you get some impressions how this validation rules can be applied. So for the future, we can recommend that you use data quality rules to use in all the validation for central governance and also for consolidation. Let me check. Is the shown address validation available in standard? So yes, it's available in standard, but you need for address validation a specific license for HANA Smart Data Quality. So if you have bought this license, because then you need also a subscription for this postal country data, and you have to buy this license and this subscription for the data, and then you can, without any additional configuration, any additional effort, you can use it directly in consolidation. So the address validation is part of our standard delivery, but needs an additional license. Let's have a look if I find something which I can answer immediately, because some of the questions I cannot directly answer, and then I would like to ask you to ask the same questions in the community or in our forums again. You will get a link together with the slide deck, which will be made available together with the recording, because I can only answer questions directly related to this topic. Let's have a look if I find something. For material consolidation, new functions in 1909. So in general, for material, we extended the data model, and the summary of changes are for sure also available for material. I showed you here some functionality like address validations, which is specific for business partner. But for material consolidation, we have also new functions in 1909. Most all the UI functionality I showed to you, like summary of changes or the validation, which will be revalidated, or this and the extension in the data model. These are part also for material in consolidation in 1909. Can we perform derivation in consolidation? Yes, that's possible. We have a specific, you can do it in standardization step, but we have also a specific step type called update. And I also made some examples how you can derivate data between all the loaded records. So it's possible using BRF+. That's one possibility. BRF+, it's out of the box available. So if you add just this update step into your consolidation process, then you are able to set up a BRF+ rule. And if this is not sufficient, you can also use ABAP coding in the BRF+ to make your derivations. And you have access to all the tables from all the fields from your loaded data to make these derivations. Let's have a look. Can we add standardization in mass processing? Unfortunately, this is currently not supported. If you want to trigger such requests, I'm sure, because every year typically we make a customer connection program, and then you can raise such requirements to us. Currently, I think it's also planned for this year. We keep you up to date also in our communities when we start with that. And currently the standardization is not supported in mass processing. You cannot add this step due to some reasons, but yeah. Are the business rules in data quality BRF+ rules? Yes, I already mentioned that. You have two options. We offer the possibility to own all BRF+ rules in the consolidation area. This is what we did up to release 1909. So until 1809, this was the only possibility to define BRF+ rules. But starting from 1909, we have this functionality that you can also apply data quality rules. I have to mention that it's currently planned because it's planned for the 1909's feature pack 2, but it should be available soon. Is validation step also calls MDG custom validation body? Yes, it's also, you can also apply the validation bodies of MDG. They also can be applied to the validation step. That's correct. Can customers define, include their own data models, custom objects? Yes, we have this option for custom objects, and we offer also a detailed instruction for that, where you you will get a step-for-step instruction how to bring your own data model into a consolidation. And then it's also applicable for mass processing and data quality. And yeah, please follow this instruction and then you can do that. But we have to ensure that you know, from MDG, we have these flex models. This is not supported. We only support the reuse area models. But if you have something like that, then you can define your own data model in consolidation. Can mass extension of materials to new plant storage location is achievable in this version? So we have to distinguish between consolidation and mass processing. And this is a mass processing use case, extension of materials to new plants and storage locations. Therefore, we have a functionality but then you have to do it using a file upload. And then the procedure in some words is you download all the materials which you want to assign to new plants or storage locations. And then you can just use in the Excel file the part for the plants and just add the additional plants and storage location. And then you set a flag with I for insert. And then you upload this file into mass processing, and then all these materials will get the new plants and or storage locations in the system. So it's part of mass processing. I didn't show it today. Can we also upload custom tables data using consolidation or mass processing? Yes. So our data model can be also extended by custom tables, and then it's also possible to use these custom tables in the consolidation process. And I have to also point to our extensibility guide and the how-to guide, which is also available for this use case. Can we trigger change requests after consolidation? Yes, that's correct. So in the last step of activation, you can configure in a way that all the data will be put into a change request, and you can even define the maximum number of records in one change request, or you can define only the erroneous records should go in a change request. This is also configurable. Yeah, so I think I could answer several questions, but there are still questions coming in.
Yes, I would like to encourage everyone who still has questions now to also look at the SAP community, see if your question has already been answered, and see that you can address them there, because I think it's beneficial for the majority of people, and also because we are approaching the end of the call. Now, how would you like to move forward, Michael?
Yeah, I think I have a deeper look on all the questions. Several of them I could not answer directly. I think they should be raised again in the community, or we can try to collect them. Let's see. But I would recommend to raise the questions in the community, because then we have a better tracking for all other users.
Yeah.
And just find the links on the slide deck, and then just use these communities to raise the specific questions, please. Yeah.
Okay,
this is Marcus speaking. Just to add at the end of the session, and already as Michael pointed out, so please take a look at the SAP Community Page. And on that page, you also find the Q&A forum where you can pose the questions. And in addition, on the SAP Community Page, you find the announcement for the next webinar that will be presented next week. And this will deal with the data quality management features in SAP Master Data Governance on S4HANA. Thank you.
Thank you, Markus. Thank you, Michael. I will also type in the chat real quick that the slide deck and recording will both be available on the SAP Community Calls page, but also, as Markus said, the community topic page about Master Data Governance really gives you all the latest and important information that you need to know. And with this, I'd like to again thank you, Michael, having presented and run through the demo. I think it was really beneficial, really helpful, and I think also want that all the questions that came in, we had a very lively audience here. So also thank you for all people who listened to this call and have asked questions. Yeah, so hope you have a great day and stay tuned for upcoming community calls. And goodbye.
Yeah, thank you and take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.